I think the thing what I believe, the thing that gives me hope, is I honestly believe if people understood what was happening here, they would not accept it and we would get change. If people knew the direction that we as a society are heading and where we're going to go, 70, 80, 90% of people would vote against it. And the only reason that we are able to make society worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, the way we are doing, is because people are misinformed and not giving good information. For me, I just wanted to get you on the channel basically because I know you've been watching it from the start and I know like your mates watching and stuff like this. And really, I just wanted to get somebody in who watches it to sort of take the place of the people who watch it and ask the questions that they might be wondering, things they don't understand, things they would like to hear more of.
Yeah, I mean, I dip in and out, to be honest with you. I'm not up to date fully on the most recents. So I guess it'll be good to know kind of where you're at and what you're looking to work on today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today, basically, I wanted to get Sim to come over in the evening so we could film some stuff that was like a bit more chill. Basically because Sim's going away and then I'm going away. So we're not going to be able to shoot for the whole of November.
Yeah.
And the channel's really growing, loads of new people are coming. And we've been like really like doing up to speed stuff on what's happening. But we're not going to be able to do that in the next month. So like I wanted to just do some stuff that was a bit more educational and is a bit more chill to really give the people who are watching the understanding basically that they're going to need going forward, because I'm not going to be able to give like on the button analysis of the news every week, but this is not
Is there a requirement to do that though? Like with this
I
whole
think
idea
if something
of like
big
news,
happens,
not necessarily.
I know that some people watch this channel because they want to understand what's happening. And like when big things happen, like last week, so much happened, right? Like Prime Minister resigned.
Yeah.
We had this big budget, which people, like for example, when the budget came out, like we arranged an emergency shoot day because it's like we cannot put out, like sometimes you put out videos like boom on the moment, like this is what's happening now, and sometimes it's educational videos. We had like an educational video and it was like after something mad like that has happened, we just have to respond to that thing that happened. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like, it's almost like a responsibility because some people, oh my God, crazy storm going on. Some people are relying on us for analysis and like, but we don't need, ultimately this is not a news channel, you know, this is not BBC News. This is a channel about helping people understand the whole big picture situation and how we can improve that over the long term, because it has to be over the long term, because we are not going to win this in the short term, but we can win this in the long term.
And what is this that we're winning?
Number one is stopping the collapse in people's living standards. That's the number one. And in my opinion, the only way to do that is to stop the massive increase in inequality. And the way I envisage that is it is going to come from people insisting on it, people demanding it. You know, because before I did this, I did a lot of different things. I went to university, change is not going to come from there. And I bounced around like think tanks and things like that. And there's good people in these think tanks and stuff like that, but ultimately these think tanks, they talk to the politicians. And the politicians say, oh, we're not going to give you a wealth tax because people don't like it, people are not going to vote for it, you know. So, you know, these think tank guys are richer people, the politicians are richer people, they're in their little space. They're not really getting hurt by it, they're not going to give you it unless you demand it. So for me, what I saw was nobody is talking to the people who are actually being hurt by this. You know what I mean? That was the thing that frustrated me the most, I think, about the way that like, the whole conversation about economics, it's like rich professors, rich journalists, rich guys on the TV, rich people writing articles, you know. And yet none of them are really making the effort to turn around and talk to the people that are getting hurt. You know, I'm very aware that I am not getting personally hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
then would you say you're not getting personally hurt on the basis of what you've accumulated for yourself or because of your lifestyle? Do you know what I mean?
Financially, I don't, because I own assets, you know what I mean? And, you know, I have wealth. And I think these are the people, you know, people with wealth are people who are being protected, you know?
Yeah. But like, you're
But
not
of
an
course I
extravagant
get hit on
person.
a personal level, but I understand, like, you know, you and I both know what is happening. You know what I mean? There's families that are literally worried about feeding their kids here,
Yeah.
like, and you know, I don't have to worry about the rent getting paid. I don't have to worry about the bills getting, you know,
Yeah,
the bills
yeah.
could go up to 10 grand and I could still pay them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be expensive, but I could still pay them. You know, so I'm just aware that there's people are being hurt, like, viscerally, and I'm not getting hit in that way. But then it just drives me mad to see all of these richer people having a discussion about it. Oh, we can't do it because people are not going to vote for it. Who are you even? Which of you is even explaining to the people what's happening? You know what I mean? So what I really wanted, like, before I started this YouTube, I was writing articles. You know, I wrote for The Guardian, I wrote for Open Democracy, you know, and it got picked up by these kind of economy people. And I don't want to, a lot of these people are good people and they want to make positive change happen, right? But I was very aware that, you know, people that I grew up with are not reading those articles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just felt like, who is talking to these people? You know what I mean? Like, if these people are going to get fucked over, at the very least, they deserve to have it explained to them what's happening. You know what I mean? But instead, you just get baffled by the stuff on the TV and the news. So that's, like, for me, ultimately at its heart, I think the thing what I believe, the thing that gives me hope, is I honestly believe if people understood what was happening here, they would not accept it and we would get change. If people knew the direction that we as a society are heading and where we're going to go, 70, 80, 90% of people would vote against it. And the only reason that we are able to make society worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, the way we are doing, is because people are misinformed and not giving good information. If people knew what is happening and what was going to happen, they would not accept it. So I feel like...
This misinformation, sorry,
Yeah.
is that intentional? Is that
There's a degree of intentional misinformation. So, you know, if you look, for example, at, like, Rupert Murdoch's news empire, like, they definitely want to push don't tax the rich, they'll leave. They definitely want to push, like, this is because of immigrants, this is because of foreigners, you know. And that is, I think, him protecting himself and his class as a billionaire. And, you know, if you look at things like the IEA, which is a big right-wing think tank that gets funded by rich people and they put people on the news, you know. Like, I saw a clip the other day of a lot of, like, American news channels, and they were all talking about how amazing Liz Truss's economic policy was. And when I saw that, what that said to me was, look how much money is going into convincing you that this is good. Like, I think it's more obvious in the American media where, like, there's so much aggressively right-wing media and you know it's funded by billionaires. But to a lesser extent, it happens here. You know, who owns the Daily Mail? Billionaire. You know, who owns the Telegraph? Billionaire. Who owns the Times? Billionaire. You know what I mean? All of these newspapers are owned by billionaires. You know, so, you know, who owns Sky? Billionaire. So, like, and, you know, I speak to people in journalism and they will tell you, of course, there's a degree to which individual journalists get freedom, but ultimately there is an editorial line that comes down from the top, you know, and I think when the money is coming from rich people, it influences the way people say, what people say. So I think there is a degree to which it is intentional, which is rich people pushing the narrative, but there is also a degree to which it just comes down to the fact that the media is not really designed to inform you, it is designed to entertain you. This is something I've spoken about in some other videos, which is like, I've worked in the city, you know, say what you like about the city, there are some dickheads there, and there are some guys that are not that smart. At the end of the day, these guys are fucking paid to be right, and they're trying to be right, you know. At least a lot of them are, you know what I mean? And they can't just chat shit and they can't put shit trades on. They have to try and be right. Yeah. Whereas if you look at the media, you know, I get called to go on the news, right? I know what it's going to be like. It's just blah, 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 bam, 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 what sounds good, what looks good. No, like, and I've cut down on doing media because I started coming away from them and thinking, who was educated here? What did anybody really learn? You know, I can go on LBC and have a fight with Nick Ferrari, you know what I mean? But ultimately, what do you learn as a listener? All we do is we just put poison into it, you know what I mean? What I want to do is to educate ordinary working people, ordinary people in ordinary financial situations. Like, I think that, ultimately, of course, only that is going to lead us to a positive outcome.
So when we talk about educating and backtracking ever so slightly towards the start of the conversation, so a couple things. You're saying that you want people to demand the change.
Yeah.
Who are they demanding it from? I know you did talk about the think tanks and politicians and certain things going into place. Who are they actually demanding it from? how feasible are these demands?
Yeah.
And if they're making these demands,
Yeah.
then, there has to be some give elsewhere, whether that affects, the super wealthy or whatnot, whether they notice that difference, like, it's obviously going to have to give somewhere else. And will it effectively mean that it could affect, other services that are available? Would they kind of take from them like they have been or they currently do?
I don't think they're going to turn around and take from you because you made demands. I think, we do still live in a democracy, right? And I think what you see, I think Brexit is a good example, right? When Brexit came around, when the referendum came around, both the two major parties, we live in a two-party system, were very anti-Brexit. And they lost the referendum and they were still anti-Brexit. But eventually enough people demanded it, and enough people ultimately said, we're only going to vote based on Brexit, that both parties essentially had to come around. I think that taxing the rich will be a harder fight than Brexit, because I think a lot of rich people don't really care that much about Brexit because it didn't really hit them. Whereas taxing the rich, there'll be bigger pushback. But I think voting is important, you know what I mean? And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it is important. And it's not even about, I spoke about this bit in the last video, it's not even about Conservatives or Labour. It's about these guys are always doing polling. They're always asking people, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want? I want these guys to do a poll group and have everybody say to them, I don't give a fuck unless you fix wealth inequality. I want this to be the message coming out of the polling groups. And that comes, I think actually, people have a lot more power than they actually think. And not as individuals, but as the conversation that we have as a group. If everybody turns around and says, fuck these guys, we want Brexit, then they'll get it. And if everybody turns around and says, listen, these guys are just a bunch of crooks, they're not doing anything, and unless they fix wealth inequality, we're fucked. And if that is the message coming out from, I want people phoning into LBC saying that. I tell you, this is a good story, right? And I can't mention any names, right? But recently I've been getting contacted by a lot of politicians, right? And I was in a room with politicians, okay? And a Conservative politician puts her hand up and says, that money, that £450 billion given out in COVID, who's got it now?
Wow.
And there was people in that room turning and looking at me, because they know I've been pushing that line day after day after day after day. And
so is that a realization that she's just made, or that person's just made?
This politician didn't hear it from me, but she heard it from someone. And ultimately, that person would have heard it from someone who would have heard it from someone who probably would have heard it from me. And that is because of the conversation that we have as a group. Like, this is not, I run a YouTube channel and everybody comes to me. This is, I run a YouTube channel and you start asking those questions to your mates. And people start calling into LBC, and people start posting it on their Twitter. People start posting it on their Facebook. Like, ultimately, the conversation that we have as a society has the power to push these politicians, And if it becomes generally accepted that, listen, the only way we're going to fix this is wealth inequality, the politicians will have to do it. And don't get me wrong, it will be a fight. But the thing is, at the moment, we are not there yet. But it's like that, You get the message out. I tell you, you tell your mates. Your mates come and watch this channel, and then people start using their own media channels. You know what I mean? It's an echo chamber, and it's like everybody has a voice, and it's like, okay, not everybody has a YouTube channel, but you have your mates at football, your mates at the pub, you have your family. You know what I mean? You have the people at work. You can influence this conversation, you know what I mean? And, I would encourage people to phone in to Talk Radio and LBC and whatever the news programs are. Phone in, get it out, put it on your Twitter, put it on your Facebook, tell your mates, tell your friends, tell your family. And then eventually get politicians coming back to me, quoting the lines what I'm saying, but they didn't hear it from me. It's because we are a community and we are a society, and you have a power to influence the beliefs of the people in your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's you share it and I share it, and then eventually it becomes common sense, and the politicians have to do it. But don't get me wrong, we will get pushback, and we're not at that stage yet because we're not at that level yet. There are still people who disagree with these ideas, but we need to get it. Not just me, but you and the people who are watching. And I'll do as much as I can, but it will only work. It's not going to work because everyone in the country subscribes to my YouTube channel. You know what I mean? It's going to work because enough people subscribe to my YouTube channel, and they told their friends, and then they told their friends, and everybody shares the voice. That's how it works. Ideas spread through a community. It's not one person. It's a combination of many one people working together. Is
your plan to kind of like address this globally? because inequality exists everywhere and anywhere.
I would love for it to be global, and I do, as and where I can, try and build up international links. It's very important for people to realise that this problem is not a UK only problem. This is happening everywhere. I'm aware that my voice is much louder in the UK than it is around the world, and also like, people are just more amenable to a message. Like, I understand what's happening here, and people hear me and they know this guy is from here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get people from all over the country. I think a big thing is like in the UK, there's not a lot of like regular working class voices, especially talking about economics on TV and the radio. So like, you don't need to be from London. I get messages from people from Scotland or people from the Northwest or people from Wales or people from the Midlands, all over, saying like, they watch the video in Ilford and they're like, I grew up just like you. You know what I mean? So I know that like, in reality, like, I have a lot more power to make a voice hit. And that is what I'm focusing on. But, when the book comes out, it's going to come out in America and it's going to come out all over the world. You know what I mean? And if you look at the one big time in history when we did achieve a big decrease in inequality, which was after the Second World War, it was very much an international thing.
Okay.
And I think that success will be a lot easier if we can have people saying these kind of things. Like I say, we're a community. In the end of the day, we're not just a national community. These things are happening everywhere. And if you do have connections in other countries, talk to them and they will tell you. There are countries that have a lot worse inequality than here, and there are countries that have less than here. Yeah. But inequality is increasing everywhere, and the same problems: can't afford housing, can't get a decent job. Worried about being able to have a family. These things are happening everywhere. So,
do these things cycle? So, does it get worse and then get a little bit better and then get worse and then better?
Yeah, they do. But if we use like history as a guide, things got really bad before they got better. The last, we had the First World War and that didn't really fix things. Things got worse after that. And you don't need me to tell you what happened after the First World War. You know what I mean? We had whole countries fall into fascism. We had the Nazis. We had the Holocaust. We had the Second World War. And only then after that did we get a reduction in inequality and a good standard of living. So yes, things cycle, but things cycle because we make it happen. You know what I mean? It's not like a natural thing. It's not like the sun goes down and the sun will come up. The sun will only come up if we make. No one is going to turn around and give us this increase in living standards or this decrease in inequality. That is only going to come from us fighting for it and us making it happen.
Yeah. But I guess it kind of goes back to where do you kind of target your fight? Who am I to fight? Like, if I haven't even got enough time or money to get on with my day-to-day, why am I going to waste time in this fight that is not necessarily going to happen? And then that's me exerting my time, wasting my energy, trying to fight. Don't get me wrong. I fully understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
There has to be someone out there to make a change. It takes people to make this change.
Yeah.
But I just feel there's a lot of people that will just be like, and I'm not talking for anyone in particular. I maybe have it in my mindset where I'm kind of like, I've just got to do what I've got to do. You know what I mean? I get up, I do what I do, and then I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, anything that can happen within that is a bonus. But
yeah,
realistically, how much time and effort can I put into this?
But
or do I need to put into this?
The way I see it and the way I approach it myself, for me, I see it as I take what I need and I give what I can. And like, I'm 100% aware I'm in a situation where it is much, much easier for me to give a lot than it is for a lot of people. I've been doing this work unpaid for years. Of course, hardly anyone can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not only that, I've got this background of studying this stuff for years. I'm not going to expect you to turn around and be an expert on this stuff and make a website about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm also aware that there is this problem of, first of all, like, this YouTube is open to everyone. But really, who it is for, in my mind, is the people who see the economics on the news and think, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about. And people who are worried. It's the people who are getting hurt and not being spoken to, because I feel there needs to be a space for just ordinary people, you know what I mean? And I'm aware that increasingly, people in the average financial situation is increasingly a struggle. So I'm aware the people that I'm speaking to very often, you know, don't have a lot to give. And, you know, I'm not asking for money. I wouldn't expect money. But often they also don't have time and energy because they're just struggling to take care of their families and this. And I would never turn around to anyone. I would never turn around to you and say, bro, you need to help me with this. You know what I mean? Like, you're here today, you know, because you have a bit of time to come, right? But I would never turn around. If you say to me, like, I can't because I'm working, I've got to do this for my family, I would never say you have to. I would leave it totally, like, in the power and the decision of the people who watch. But I know, like, I've seen it, that the people who have little are still, in many cases, willing and they want to help. You know, I went up to Rishi Sunak's constituency in North Yorkshire to a food bank, to speak to people about, like, do you know how rich Rishi Sunak is and the cost of living crisis? And just coincidentally, it happened to be immediately after the invasion of Ukraine. So I'm going up to this food bank in North Yorkshire, right? And it's, you know, everyone in there is just packing stuff. Everyone is in volunteers packing stuff. And then 4 guys are going to drive, put it in lorries, their lorries, and drive to Ukraine. And I asked the people, like, who are these people here? And it was the food bank users. So these are the people that don't even have enough to eat. And yet you see this thing happen, like, 1,000 miles away. And you are going to go and do that. Yeah. And I think that is, like, I've seen that in my life. Like, I know that people don't have much, but they are willing. And I wouldn't ask anyone to give more than they can give.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Just like, if all you can do is watch the videos and understand as best you can, just do that. And even if you can't watch all the videos, don't do that. But, like, just tell your friends, tell your family, look, try to understand what's happening. Just say, listen, there's a guy, I think he knows what he's talking about. He says the only way to fix this is to fix wealth inequality, you know. He seems like he knows his stuff. Check him out, you know. You just, and then it's what can you, and, like, there will be things that you can do that I didn't even think about. People ask me, what can I do? The truth is, I make a YouTube channel talking about economics because I know economics, you know what I mean? Yeah. But as an ordinary person, you know, I'm not, you know, I've lived in Japan and I've lived in Oxford and I've been all over, right? I'm not really as connected to the local community. But there will be a lot of people who what they just have is, you know, there will be guys around here watch my videos and then they just go to masjid, you know what I mean? Tell the guys at masjid, you know what I mean? I don't know those guys, you tell them, you know what I mean? Like, it's, and there'll be people who, like, you know, there'll be people who are creatives, you know what I mean? Who can make other ways of communicating these ideas. I think what it is about is, you don't need to do anything, you know what I mean? And I would never demand it from anyone, but look at your situation and say, what can I do? And if it's just something as, like, you know, if everybody tells one other person, then you get everyone. That's all it takes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just try and understand it and try and communicate these ideas with the people around you and just get it into the conversation. It's like, that's all I would ask. And, you know, I get messages, so many messages for people, I want to help. And I find it difficult because I would love to reply to all of them, but, like, it's enough to just spread the message. It's enough to understand it, to recognize that it is good and that it's important, and to spread it. Like, that is, ultimately, if everybody supports it, it will happen. So really, all you need to do is to support it, you know, and if you can do more, fantastic. But, like, and if you're in a space where literally you are struggling to pay the bills, then just do that, you know what I mean? I wouldn't ask for anything more. It's a question of, like, how much time and energy do you have? And I know, because I've seen it, that people who are struggling still want to help. I've seen it enough times.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that sky looks amazing. Yeah.
Money currently is flowing from the government to the rich, leaving the government with big piles of debt and the rich with big piles of money. There is one other thing they can do with that massive amount of income. They can buy your mum's house.